I needed to choose an area of Indigenous Australian history that interested me. I immediately thought of exploring Indigenous kinship. How people work and live together is something I find very interesting. But I did not just want to use books. I decided to see what Indigenous Australians themselves had to say about kinship.
Kinship is a complex and sophisticated system of social organisations covering responsibilities, roles and reciprocal bonds, determining how people are related, who one can marry and who supports who.
As well as seeing what Indigenous lecturers at Sydney Uni had to say about kinship, I also spoke to local Minjimble woman Darlene Rotamar about her notions of kinship, past and present. From Darlene, I learned about what kinship means to her, how kinship's used, how people's totem animals are decided, and how kinship influences art and even food, as well as a lot more. Today I'm interviewing Minjimble woman Darlene Rotamar on kinship. Darlene, can you tell me a bit about yourself?
So I'm Darlene Rotamar. I am from the Minjimble people and the Kudjambara people who are a part of the Bundjalung Nation. So the Bundjalung Nation has become a general term for the whole language area stretching the far north east coast of New South Wales and the southern eastern coast of Queensland. It extends from Grafton on the Clarence River in the south to the Logan River in the north and inland as far as the Great Dividing Range at Tenterfield and Warwick. At the time of first European contact in the 1800s, there were up to 20 dialects in the Bundjalung Nation. Minjimble is one of them. Bundjalung, Widjabul, Waibul are just a few of those dialects in the Bundjalung Nation.
My first question today is, what does kinship mean to you?
Okay, so kinship to me means family. So models of kinship might be different to what you might understand within your family structure. So to me, it is about my extended family network also. So it's about your family members, and that could be people who are not blood related. It could be my cousins or people that we grew up with or people who were part of, for example, the Minjimble clan, who we consider a part of our kinship network.
My second question is, what are the different ways that kinship is used? For example, hunting and gathering.
Yeah, so if you think of traditionally Aboriginal lifestyle, they didn't have Coles, Woolworths, Bilo, supermarkets. So the way we had to survive traditionally was off the land. So as part of our kinship learning and was to teach our children traditionally how to hunt food and how to gather food. So that was to know which animals were good for you, which were bad, which went against your totem, which you weren't allowed to eat.
I heard about that in school.
That's right. So there's some things. So through your kinship system, we learned all about that. So for here, my ancestors learned how to fish. They knew which fish were poisonous, which fish were good for you, which were not so good for you. They learned how to live off the land and the sea and the beaches. So if people were doing kangaroos, that would be more inland where kangaroos are, and different food sources for different lands. So because this is here and there's the rivers and there's beaches, we all learned to live off what those rivers provided. So traditionally that was the way, and through our kinship, so passing down through knowledge and oral systems, which is telling stories and yarning, it's now passed down to me, and now I've got a son who's 38 and a daughter who's 37. They know how to go fishing. They know how to go and get pippies from the beach, which is then you can either eat them or you can use them as bait to catch other fish. They know how to go out and catch mud crabs, and they also know how to where to find the berries and everything that around here that grows well.
So how are people's totem animals decided? How are they picked?
totem or totemic law is based on, and that's passed down through your kinship, so through your family. It's like your dad telling you stuff and your mum, then you will tell your children about ways of being. But the totem is like an animal that signifies that tribe where you come from. So because they didn't have technology back then, they didn't have pens and papers, but was based on the animals or the wildlife of that area. So our totem for me would be the echidna, which is from Booningbar, which you might know as Fingal. Do you know where Fingal Head is?
Yeah.
So, and it's based on Dreamtime stories. And so that's how we pass down our law.
So your totem is echidna?
Is an echidna. Wait. Because I grew up at Fingal, and there is the shape of the rocks at the Fingal headland that looks like an echidna. So they all have Dreamtime stories related to them, which we respect and grow up with. Some people, like I'm not sure about what your religion is, but some people have beliefs around Catholic, but the Catholic stories talk about God or Jesus. So people have different ways of learning about what's happens in the world, and ours are our Dreamtime stories. I've given you I've printed out I think I put a Mount Morning one in here. Well, they call it Mount Morning, but we know it as Wollumben. You know that mountain?
Yeah.
So there's a Dreamtime story related to that, around how it got to be its shape. And that's, I've printed that out for you. So, yeah.
So the next question was, are there any kinship arrangements that are unique in this area?
Yes. So in Bundjalung Nation, which is where you are today, so this is Yugambeh dialect here, and you go over to Tweedhead and it's Minyabul, which is my clan. So in Bundjalung Nation, kinship network was law. An Aboriginal man was a social father to all the children of the clan, and Aboriginal women was a social mother. That means in clans or groups of people, an Aboriginal man can be a father figure to all the children.
Yeah.
And the same for the mother. And we have that saying that it takes a community to raise a child, and we still have that happening today. Everyone had a place. No one was excluded or left out. This was our democracy at work. We learned about life through kinship. Bundjalung learning through our kinship included dance, so we actually learned through dancing. Dance tells stories. They don't just get up and shake and jump around. Every movement is a story, and through storytelling and songs. And this is how traditionally we learn how to survive in life, and today we are still guided by our kinship laws. So I'm not sure, I don't think that is unique to this area. I think other people are similar, but different places have different laws.
My next question is kinship shown in paintings?
It is shown in paintings today, and it definitely was traditionally. You've seen or heard of rock art, and that was about showing family members. So you would have seen figures. Have you seen? Yeah. But yes, so that is kinship in art, and you'll see wherever you look today. You'll see there's some up there, for example, on those paintings. All of that artwork is about kinship. You'll see animals, and they all tell a story, and that's from the Reconciliation Week we had just a couple of weeks ago. Aboriginal art is defined by the social and cultural setting where it was created, as is the case in all world art. Aboriginal artists express their identity and social relationships by utilising ancestrally inherited designs and practices. So when an Aboriginal artist is working in a traditional social structure, produces an artwork, the content is fully connected to the dreaming stories and cultural responsibilities of that artist. In Aboriginal groups, kinship networks determine how each family ancestry is linked to particular dreaming stories and sites. This in turn defines which stories an artist can paint within the traditional structures. So within our kinship laws, we are taught this, that because I'm here, I'm in Tweedheads, I'm from the Minjabul clan on the Bundjalung Nation, I can't go up to Darwin and paint a kinship model of a family up in Darwin using their stories because that is against our kinship law.
Yeah.
So I can only paint my understanding on Bundjalung country.
So for my last question, how does kinship work regarding food? Because at school we learn about, if someone's sick or unable to hunt or gather food, then they would still get their food. Yes, how does that work?
So our way, yes, and we have certain foods we eat. So traditionally, so Europeans would have had their own Western ideas of medicine and healing and food.
And if you, in Europe, if you didn't have food, if you couldn't get food, you would not survive.
Yeah.
It was different to here.
Yeah, because we lived on the land.
Yeah.
Because things grew. So you didn't have to go to a town or to a doctor's surgery or to a chemist to get anything. It was just go out and pick something. And they still teach those today around the place of how to get something that will heal you. I'm just trying to think of something really quick, like, for example, tea tree, lemon myrtle tree, and lemon myrtle leaves. They're from around here. I have 2 grown in my yard because when I'm not well, I'll go and boil some of that up. And I'll still, and you probably will too, your mother and your dad, and we'll probably still use lemons and things like that when you're not at.
Yeah.
So some of those things are still around today, depending on where you live. Up in the Northern Territory and out in Western Australia, they still use traditional healing medicines. Around here, we kind of mix the both. But if we're really sick, we have to go to the doctors, and because of our lifestyle. But there's certain things that we maintain within our system, and kinship models is one of them. All right, so one thing I'll just go back to. So generally speaking, so I've given you my understanding of kinship, which is basically family, and it can be, and today it's known as extended family members. That's why we're known to have big, huge families. So we look after each other. And that's basically like my language around what kinship is. And we call people brothers, sisters, cousins, and they may not be blood related. So that's really what kinship is. But the formal explanation is kinship is a system of social organisations covering roles, responsibilities and bonds within a family. It determines how people are related. So you don't have to have blood related, or the elders in that clan will tell you how that works. So it determines how people are related, who one can marry and who can support who. There are over 500 different Aboriginal nations in Australia, and they are connected through their kinship systems. So have you heard that we all know each other? And that's through that. And within these nations, there are clan groups, which I spoke about. Mine is actually Minjabul, who share common kinship and language. So we're connected all across the country through our 500 different nations, and we're also connected through our different clans, which make us a little bit different to the people up in Darwin, for example. And language. And within the clan groups, there are family groups. So you've got your nation, you've got your clans, and then you've got your family groups, which are all still connected through kinship, but they're all just broken down. Kinship laws are a part of every Aboriginal group and passed down from generation to generation through word of mouth. All Aboriginal people were familiar with the kinship laws of their clan. They knew what they were allowed to do and what they weren't allowed to do.
So I just got a question from what you just said then. How do the marriages work? Who can you and can you not marry?
So because that was our kinship, so as you would probably know that in your culture, you wouldn't be allowed to marry, that you're not allowed to marry people who are related to you. We all know that if you've got a same bloodline. Yeah? So because we were known to have extended family and different people coming in, it depends on, so a lot of the elders within the kinship model will say, you can't marry this one, he's from this tribe or this clan, and we are in conflict.
Oh, yeah.
So they would say that. That probably doesn't happen as often around here, but in some traditional lifestyles, it happens for some clans. And I think, worldwide in different countries around the world, they still would have some of those laws where they say you can't marry this person or you can't go visit them.
Thank you, Darlene Rottemar, for your time today and answering all my questions. Thank you. After this project, I feel like I have some knowledge of how kinship works, and I hope this is the first of many conversations I have with Australia's first peoples.